Hi, Petaluma, and welcome to Season 2 of One Petaluma, your local government podcast. I'm your host, Jamison Bunn, Communications Manager for the City of Petaluma. If you're new to the podcast, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for listening. We started this podcast last year to help dive a little bit deeper into the big issues facing our community. It's also a chance for residents to hear directly from city staff and learn more about what's going on behind the scenes of your local government. If you've listened to our episodes in the past, welcome back. We're excited to bring you more stories from City Hall and out in the field in Petaluma as we work to serve you. More than a year ago, when we were first deciding whether or not to launch a podcast, we decided on the name One Petaluma. We wanted the podcast to speak to the idea that although Petaluma has a lot of disparate constituencies, together, when we are at our best, we are still one united community. We've got seniors, we've got young families, we've got indigenous community members, we have people whose ancestors settled Petaluma in the 1850s, and we have people who are making Petaluma their home for the first time every single day. We also have a ton of industries represented in Petaluma with different economic needs, from agriculture to tech, from artisans to educators, and all of these different groups and unique individuals want something different from their city. But your local government exists to serve everyone, and so as civil servants, we try to look for those common threads that unite as many people as possible into this tapestry that, if woven well, brings to life the idea of One Petaluma. Now, I've really been looking forward to this episode because for many of us, our fairgrounds represents the physical embodiment of this idea. The annual Petaluma Fair is one of our biggest events and brings together around 40,000 people over 4 days every summer. And in an emergency, the fairgrounds are used as an evacuation site where donations are gathered, cots are laid out for our neighbors in need, and food is served from across the community. Long-term residents may know that before 2024, the fairgrounds property was leased to a state agency, the 4th District Agricultural Association, or DAA, which controlled the property for decades in order to put on the beloved annual fair. After the lease ended in January 2024, the City of Petaluma regained the 55 acres at the heart of our city, and it has now been managing the fairgrounds property for a year and a half. It would be an understatement to say that transition was big news for the community. The property is owned by Petaluma's residents, and the goal behind the transition to city management was to increase public access to the property in the heart of our city and to give the community a chance to determine the property's daily uses and its future. So in 2022, to make sure that the public truly had a chance to weigh in on the future of the fairgrounds and bring a more diverse group of voices to the table, we decided to try something brand new. The city partnered with the nonprofit Healthy Democracy to convene the Petaluma Fairgrounds Advisory Panel, a first-of-its-kind initiative in California. This panel brought together 36 residents, selected through a democratic lottery, to reflect the city's diverse demographics, from age, gender, race, housing status, and educational background. Over the course of approximately 90 hours between May and July 2022, the panelists engaged in deep deliberations to address a central question. How could we use the city's fairgrounds property to create the experiences and activities, resources, and places that our community wants and needs, now and into the future? To make full participation possible, panelists received stipends and support services like childcare, transportation, and language interpretation. The panel's work culminated in 3 detailed visions for the fairground's future. And while these 3 visions differed in some ways, there were a few main ideas that garnered over 90% of the participants' support. Almost all the panelists agreed that we should preserve the annual fair, support local agriculture on the fairgrounds with education programs and incubator spaces when possible, designate the site as an emergency evacuation center for people and animals, establish a year-round farmers market to promote food access and local economy, and implement eco-friendly noise mitigation strategies to respect surrounding neighborhoods. Other widely supported ideas included promoting green open space and sustainable landscaping, building flexible use facilities for events, education, and emergencies, enhancing walk and bike paths for greater accessibility, and hosting multicultural events and preserving Petaluma's history. Together, all these different recommendations reflected a community-centered vision for the fairgrounds that can adapt to a range of possible uses and do so in a climate-resilient way. They also wanted us to turn the property into a place where everyone could gather. Of course, it's no coincidence that this episode of the podcast is launching just days before this year's Petaluma Fair. This will be the first time that the city of Petaluma is partnering with the 4th DAA to manage the annual fair. And so in addition to the fairgrounds property, we're going to be talking about what residents can expect at the 2025 fair. That is why I am so excited to be joined today by our city manager and some of the staff who are bringing the fair this year to life. Hi guys, can you go around the table and introduce yourself?
Hi, great to be here. I'm Drew Halter, Director of Parks and Recreation.
I'm Melissa Abercrombie. I am your city's public art specialist.
Hi, it's great to be here. My name is Reisinger. I'm Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation.
Hi, Petaluma. Peggy, Flynn, City Manager.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. So I was talking just now about the Fairgrounds Advisory Panel, and I'd love to talk a little bit about how their recommendations are guiding the activity that's happening on the fairgrounds property now, and since the city began managing the property about a year and a half ago.
Sure. I'll kick things off and really underscore how important it was to have such strong support for a vision for the fairgrounds. There's not a program that we look at, an event that we consider hosting without looking through the lens of what were those guiding principles. First and foremost, we're at fair time, and we're excited to be able to deliver on that commitment to host an annual fair, the Petaluma Fair, this year. But as you mentioned in our intro, in the back of our minds are always how to make sure that we're prepared to serve our community in the event of a disaster, how we are creating more opportunities to access the property in ways that meet the needs of our programming and recreational activities, and an opportunity for us to bring new and exciting uses to the fairgrounds. It's all about access for us, and we're a better and stronger community when we include more into that conversation.
That's such a great overview, Drew. And I would just add that the advisory panel's recommendations and the guiding principles that have been foundational for all of the interim programming, we committed to 3 to 5 years of interim programming to kind of see what would work on the property. And the advisory panel's guiding principles represented the broader community's feedback that we heard when we did the community outreach for the vision for the fairgrounds. And it truly is a One Petaluma effort.
Have there been any challenges in implementing the community's vision on the fairgrounds since we've taken over the property?
Yes, and we flipped that on its head as well. And this is cliche, but it is opportunities for us. The whole property is intended to be that way. It is an opportunity for our community to revision how it's going to serve us in the future. There were legacy uses. There were existing tenants that relied on the property and the facilities to house their school programs, to house a speedway. So these are tenants that we committed to providing some stability during this time of transition, but that does come with challenges. It comes with challenges of maintaining these facilities, but also introducing new uses, and that's a skill set and a muscle that we've had to really work together on to help provide that stable operation so that both feel included on the property, new uses and existing.
So after decades of residents being unable to access the property regularly, one of the directions we received from the community was to pilot new uses on the fairgrounds. There is a sense that while our fairgrounds has some incredible traditions attached to it, there are 55 acres that are now available for public programming. And the community wants to balance the hallowed traditions with some new offerings. So what are some of the new pilot programs that we have launched in the last year on our fairgrounds? Kat, do you think you could speak to this one?
Yes, thank you, Jameson. That's a great question, and we have quite a few different new uses that fit within the Petaluma Fairgrounds guiding principles, meaning are they large special events that we want to try and host and see how well they're received by the community, such as the event we did last October, which was the world's largest bouncy, where we learned a whole lot about what it takes to run a very large whole weekend event experience on the fairgrounds.
How did the bouncy house weekend go? That was, I'm going to be honest, my 3-year-old was not told that there was a bouncy house weekend on the fairgrounds. I was a little bit worried about that one, but I knew a lot of families who went, and it seemed like a really fun event.
It was fun. There are a lot of lessons learned. I, prior to the bouncies, didn't recognize the amount of staking requirements that Adobe Clay Carnival Lawn would need to be able to ensure that we run safe events, which is very important for us that we are learning on the fairgrounds as well, as how do we balance the needs of safety and regulation while still being able to have fun and support new uses, try different things that have never been done before that we've never been able to do them. So the bouncy was really well received. We're looking forward to a different bouncy provider coming out this year at the end of August. That will be a little smaller footprint, but very excited to see how well that event is received with the community.
That's awesome.
And I just want to say, too, I mean, where else, right, when Kat takes that call from someone interested in hosting an acre of inflatables, could you say, well, let's find out what that looks like. Let's find out how we can make that happen. So I want to give Kat a lot of credit here too, to finding creative ways to balance, those kind of big flashy events with, while at the same time looking at some of these facilities on the fairgrounds and saying, how do we create these multi-use flex spaces and have wrestling coexist right next to cheer across from a judo program, and oh, by the way, let's throw in ballet folklorico, and now all of a sudden you've got so many different uses that Kat and the Parks and Rec team are largely be able to move around and just try new things.
And I would just add, Parks and Rec definitely up to the challenge, but this was a lot to take on, adding 55 acres to our Parks and Rec portfolio. But the challenge, I think the biggest challenge has been, there's just this pent-up demand of having community space and accessibility on our fairgrounds, and also being able to do revenue-generating events as well, so we can reinvest in the fairgrounds. So we have spent this last year and a half doing a lot of no-cost, low-cost, more geared toward community offerings than revenue generation, because there has been this pent-up demand, and we recognize the importance of that. So it's been a tremendous experience, and we all have built muscle in event planning, and it's just super excited about what's to come.
One of the most eye-opening demands that we've learned from Parks and Recreation is the demand to use Herzog Hall for some of those family events that traditionally there's not really good space within the Petaluma borders that's affordable to families to use. But we found a really large group of quinceañeras really like to come to that space. And we're actually, and this is where I feel very fortunate to be working for the city of Petaluma, because when I do get those phone calls, for example, for this quinceañera family, they want to bring dancing horses to their event. And I actually get to say, oh, let me check that out. We might be able to make that work, where I can guarantee that in the past that was not the answer that I provided to these families. So while not everything does work, and we're still throwing spaghetti against the wall, kind of figuring out what does stick, what appropriately sticks, and how to clean up what might not have been the best idea, we at least get to try it, which I think is really cool.
One thing that has been in the news recently, we just hosted an open house, a celebration for this, is the trial pickleball courts in the Bianchi barn, which will, I believe, shortly be used at the fair for animals. Is that right? And so we're going to have to take the pickleball courts out and bring them back in. Is that what's going to happen? Or
that is a great question, and I actually have some great news. So if you missed trying out the pilot pickleball, the Petaluma Fairgrounds pickleball courts, there are 3 of them, we are actually going to have one of the courts repurposed and put into the expo hall that will be available for people to check out. And right next to the courts in the expo hall, we are going to have the Sport Court Alliance, which are our groups of nonprofits for tennis, pickleball, all things racket club programs during the fair. So you can come check it out, hit the ball a few times, take an up-close personal look at the courts.
That's exciting. I didn't even know that. That was... Surprises come out during the podcast, and it's always really fun. So speaking of pilot uses, the biggest one that we did this year was Luma Ice, our outdoor ice rink on the fairgrounds. And Kat, this one was really your baby. You put a lot of work into bringing an ice rink to the city of Petaluma. And we all, the whole city team, really worked tremendously hard. But you were out there every day during the holidays, really making sure that this ran well and smoothly for people. Are we going to be doing Luma Ice next year?
That's a great question. And one of the goals in piloting the uses and to be good, responsive stewards of the public's trust and the public's finances is really to evaluate programs and how best they are received within the community. And while there's a lot of positive community experience with Luma Ice, and I absolutely loved it, and it was, what other city could I bring an idea when I haven't even worked here for 6 months yet? Like, hey, let's do an ice rink during the holidays. It was amazing. It's our job to also evaluate the program and ensure that it fits the needs and the goals of the community. We are very hopeful that we will be doing Luma Ice again in the fall. However, after the fair, we are going to be looking at all of the analytics and parameters and numbers and making sure it does meet and align the goals of our mission, vision, guiding principles, and values so that we can bring it back to the community for next year.
That sounds very well reasoned. What are some of the lessons that we learned from Luma Ice? Is there anything that...
Sorry, I'm visually just remembering the weekend of Santa Cruz and the tornado when the tent was almost blowing away and staff are holding the temporary fencing while the porta potties are blowing over and our city manager's running over with sandbags. And it was, I think, Jameson, you weren't there that day, but I remember you helping in the rain. I feel that like this last winter was one of the wettest winters we've had. So just lessons learned for us. I think our biggest lesson learned was that we did it. Mm-hmm. Like, we did it. And lots of lessons learned. We could have planned better with having mats in a different way so that people didn't have to take off their ice skates when they wanted to grab a beverage or some French fries. So we're going to take that lesson and change the plan if we're able and fortunate enough to do Luma Ice next year. We learned some lessons really that people want to ice skate. They want to come, they want to ice skate. It's really nice to have music or a few specialty nights, but really the whole event was geared more towards families, and they came out and supported. And one of the largest things we learned, it was most impactful to me, was the event was such that teens could be ice skating, for example, but their grandparents or parents could be watching from the sidelines, and you didn't actually have to pay for a ticket to watch. So it was a really low-cost, friendly, accessible experience where people wanted to come back time and time again. Actually, one of the biggest requests we got from the survey that we sent out to users afterwards was they wanted a multi-visit use punch pass ticket to be able to come back multiple times, which absolutely fabulous idea. The feedback that we received was tremendous.
That's awesome.
One of the other lessons that was really powerful that we didn't really anticipate was how supportive of the glide and gives and the school groups and the school trips were for this event. I think it was really underestimated, and it shouldn't have been, right, how supportive of the community is to come out and support it through the nonprofits or their schools. Everyone wanted to be a part of that event. But how many organized groups were we serving those first couple days and weeks, and really helping support schools and nonprofits do functions. So that was another area, those kind of organized groups that were really quite remarkable in that first few days of opening.
And just to trail off that, it's for the fairgrounds, going back to the guiding principles, is providing those accessible spaces to be used. So the accessible, fun, safe space, the foundation that other groups can come and plan their event in this unique location, also happened to be a very popular hub for winter birthday parties, which was another thing we learned, which is great because we can take that lesson that we learned from Luma Ice, but translate it out, not just from the fairgrounds, but to some of our other offerings or other groups within the Petaluma area to be like, oh, there's this need for indoor birthday or different unique experiences. How else can we better serve our community?
Yeah, I noticed there's a 4-day pass for the fair this time around, which was one of the lessons you just mentioned, that people want to come back and again, especially when there are a lot of really, cool things that you can do on the property. So we're offering that this year too.
And Luma Ice was actually that gift that we want to give to our community to keep them in the community during the holidays, because so many families go outside of our community for activities during the holidays, and we offered that, and we were open for 24 days. So think 6 times as long as the fair is going on. We were open for 25 days from 10 a.m. to 10
p.m.
Yep, 12 hours a day, with just taking Christmas off, I think.
Well, we actually had a hockey practice on Christmas, yes, technically it was.
Yes.
But that was one of the lessons learned was people want hockey.
On Christmas.
Well, we had guns and hoses. I mean, we had police and fire, duking it out on the ice. So it was a wonderful, I think, foray into a new holiday tradition.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the last lessons learned with the art and the Naga piece too is that we learned how interested people are in art, and that art can be simple. Art, they can walk by, they just want to experience it. So we have so much art coming up at the fair, which is new this year, and I'm so excited to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's a great segue. So most folks know at this point, we are going to be dividing management of our Petaluma Fair this year. The 4th District Agricultural Association will still be managing the livestock exhibits and the craft and still exhibits. We're really grateful for that. The city is going to take over management of things like our carnival contract. We continue to do the property management. And then we're also bringing a new lens to the programming at the fair. So I want to share with folks what they can expect, what are some of the new elements, and what are some of the traditional elements that are going to be returning. Melissa, I know you've spent almost infinite time the last few months really bringing some of that together because, as a public arts specialist and a city employee, you wear a ton of hats, and one of your specialties is bringing people together around amazing programming. So we've been lucky to benefit from that. So tell us what you've got planned.
There's a lot of exciting opportunities that happen at this fairgrounds. I feel like when we first took over management, we got to create the True Heart of Petaluma mural with Michael Garlington and really do a huge amount of community outreach to identify what it takes to make a fairgrounds. And in that project, I really learned a lot about the players who historically participated at the fair, the players who are there year-round, the players that are there a couple days of the year, but to everybody, it was the heart of the community. So to start out with that identifying marker on the site, we approached the fair. I felt like the fair, we were looking to stay in a budget that really couldn't support the kind of art we're getting at the site. People stepped up from the community and said, hey, how can I be involved? And I'm really excited to share that we are going to have a wide variety of artistic chickens on the fairgrounds to everybody's joy. Michael Garlington has created 5 humongous chickens, novelty size, you might say,
They're beautiful.
and a big cow. Patrick Amiot is really being an incredible partner to the city in creating a chicken meetup reunification bench, a bantam,
Nice.
to the city's request, and it will stand 10 feet tall on the edge of the concourse, again accessible to all members of the public, and it will be a bench to sit on, a bench to find your people when you're lost or need to meet up at the fair. It's all going to be fabricated of recycled farm equipment and machinery parts. So it's especially symbolic to the heart of the agricultural roots of our fair. Every single element of this is being created with heart. Johnny Hirschmungel is bringing his giant crows, which you might have seen around town at Slough City and at the Mail Depot, and they will be there for you to take your pictures by and celebrate the fair. We will also have a live painting experience in the expo hall with Johnny Hirschmungel, and he will be selling his art. We've partnered with Wonder Stump, Josh and Kristen, who created the fountain that was at Helen Putnam Plaza this winter. If you didn't experience, be prepared to experience something fun and new from this team in the expo hall. They're going to be also selling takeaway creative kits for the public. We're partnering with Brick Chicks, so we'll have a Lego experience where you can come and build. If you don't know Brick Chicks, they're in Pengrove. We've spent many hours there buying used parts to Legos. They are fantastic. And this year, the California Blacksmithing Association will have a booth accessible to the public to watch them as they forge a custom gate inspired by our fairgrounds and our community for the Payran pedestrian entrance. This will be a phenomenal piece that multiple artists are working on, and it is a gift with steel and parts from Van Beber and the California Blacksmithing Association to our community. We recognize that these aren't the types of gifts that just come out of thin air. These are the types of gifts that come when we are one community looking out for each other and inspiring each other with our most creative purpose and heart.
That's amazing. And we're also going to be increasing local vendors, local food options at the fair. We really want to make this a Petaluma-centric fair celebrating the best of our community. Kat, can you talk a little bit about some of the other local vendors that we're going to have?
Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely having local vendors and local support, which we're really excited. Some of our traditional farmers markets like the boba chai, what a chicken, the pizza. You remember the name? The
Pizza cones.
The pizza cones, yes.
New fair food.
It was really good. Yes. Saxa Joint will be there. Chick City Goods will be there. I'm really excited that this year on Sunday we will have the Speedway Demolition Derby and a BMX community ride and expo, which is kind of fun.
And that means you could actually bring your own bike to the Speedway and ride for free, right? To the BMX experience? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Super fun, super exciting. And as for free, it's included in your ticket purchase, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you just get to do all those things as part of your entrance into the fair, which is really exciting.
Nice.
But don't worry, we have a lot of local talent, but there are going to be corn dogs.
Okay.
And traditional fair food.
Be funnel cakes.
Absolutely. The biggest funnel cakes, yes. And I found the location this morning for that.
I am really excited about another aspect of the fair. Last year we went and we had a great time. It was really, really hot. And my kids are little and they do not thrive in the sun for several hours without a significant amount of ice cream, which, you know, after a while we're like, I can't buy you another slushie. But this year we are going to have more respite areas for folks to get out of the sun so they can enjoy the fair for longer. We're going to have better water stations. Could we talk a little bit about what kind of hospitality we're going to offer for folks so that they can enjoy the fair for longer?
I'll start with this was one of the big areas of feedback we received from last year's fair, and we're excited to be having using Beverly C. Wilson Hall as our designated respite area. We'll have staffed there all hours of operation. Folks are welcome to come in if they need a break, if they want to relax, if they want to have a cold refreshment, and also be introduced to other activities that are happening throughout the fair. Shade was a big level of investment for us. Working with the program group to provide more of it and spread it out of the property was a big priority for us. So excited to combine that with other, water filling stations and regular ice, other elements that we're all going to need and want during the event.
I also understand there's going to be a dunk tank for nonprofits.
Who will we get to dunk? The community wants to know.
You have to come to the fair to find out.
Yes, we do have a dunk tank. It's going to be awesome. It is awesome. We have quite a few surprise groups who will be showing up. And right next to the dunk tank is going to be the inflatable bowl, which we're very excited that you can sign up for to ride and experience, which will be right across from our Lawn and Lights Pavilion, which is where all the music and fun evening entertainment will occur.
There are also going to be inflatable water slides. Is that right?
Yes. Excellent question. I'm very excited about this. We will have 2 inflatable water slide obstacle experiences that are free for you to come and enjoy with your fair ticket price. They are actually strategically stationed right next to a shade tent with picnic tables and straw bale seating for parents to be able to sit and watch their kids experience water joy and water play. That was a strategic decision by us to try to help cool down hot children. I have a 7 and 9-year-old boy. That's where they're going to be.
I also want to add that we're going to be having a circus at the fair this year. Flynn Creek Circus is going to have a tent that will provide us 300 seated table or 300 seats under the shade of the big top. So that's a whole new part of the fair that's really intriguing to me. And this circus isn't an animal circus. This is acrobatics. It's human performance. We will also have magician Joe Culpepper with a PhD in magic coming from Santa Rosa to come and do magical sleight of hand and entertainment for our community, also under the big top and along the pedestrian passages. And we will also have a variety of entertainers and hypnotists, sea shanty singers with accordions. It's going to be absolutely bananas.
And the Pup Palooza dog costume contest.
Yes, Friday evening, the Puppapalooza dog costume contest. Yes, 4 p.m. That will be under the circus tent. We are pretty excited about the costume contest for the dogs, and I've absolutely loved seeing their entry photos on their application.
And we're also going to have nonprofits represented. I know that I just had to approve a sign that says puppies and kitties on it, which I believe is going to be directing folks to an area where they can meet adoptable puppies and kitties. Is that right?
Yes, we do have adoptable kitties and puppies and a whole area called the Good Earth Grove that has educational and community service-oriented nonprofits. We have the Cuddle Shuttle, which traditionally has been at the front of the fair, but they will be back in the Good Earth Grove area by the Herzog Hall and the beer tent. And I am very thankful to say that we also have been able to partner with the Kiwanis Group, which has had a long-standing tradition of supporting the alcohol, beer, and wine sales at the fair. And we felt it was strong and significant for us to remain a partner with them to withhold the tradition of their community participation and how they do give back the proceeds from the fair to our community partners.
Nice. Is there anything else about the fair that we want to make sure the community knows before they get there? I know there are still going to be some amazing surprises, but
you can get a 4-day pass.
That's right, 4-day pass.
For $55. It's amazing. I was kind of shocked. But also I want to remind people that the 4th District is still producing the Stills exhibits, Farmer Day, which will have a variety of events, tug-of-war, all kinds of fun stuff. So I really want us to all check out the makers and homegrown artisans and growers that are here that we need to celebrate.
Still exhibits are always amazing, and the livestock shows, even though this year, because of the avian flu, we can't have the poultry show, there will be livestock shows. So, supporting our FFA and 4-H students is going to be really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also just want to highlight that we are working with the same carnival vendor, Midway of Fun, to be able to provide the same type of carnival rides and fun activities and carnival experience on both the main lawn for the older kids and then the kiddie area, kiddie carnival, over on the other side of the concourse. So there are rides which are included in your ticket price.
That's awesome. Switching gears a little bit, I believe we're able to now say that the city has secured a $1 million grant to help with the master planning process for the fairgrounds starting, is it later this year that we'll be doing that, or in 2026?
Yes, we are going to be kicking off our master plan process for the fairgrounds and are looking to include our fairgrounds advisory panel in capacity to be able to help guide what they learned in their time in 2022, along with all of our stakeholders and our residents of what's worked, what we've learned, the potential of the property, and how we can continue integrating that One Petaluma approach.
Awesome. How does a master plan process differ from the guidance we've already received from our panelists and community?
It actually will start to help us visualize where things go, how things flow on the site. One of the uses on the site that will be occurring next year, mid-next year, is going to be the building of our public safety facility. And this is to house our fire and police. And so this will also serve as our emergency operations center, which in my 6.5 years as being city manager, we've had 5 declared emergencies. So we are no stranger to being able to be on the property and activate our emergency operations. So the public safety facility will also have the emergency operations center and will help us with the resiliency of our community. So we're super excited to start looking at how the property is starting to emerge, both with the programming that we're doing and with the civic needs as a civic campus.
I would add too, when you ask anything else you would add about the fair, when we're teeing up a master plan for the Petaluma Fairgrounds, take this opportunity to come experience the fair. This is a perfect time as we start informing the types of uses and the flows, how we want to experience this property. We want folks to really experience everything this property can offer so we can lead in to an authentic master planning process. And a lot of times we land in a really good space when we include more groups. So this fair we were working so hard to make sure there's offerings across a broad spectrum of interests, and we really hope that this will help inform a good master plan. We have always needed a really strong public safety infrastructure in the center of our city. So what a great time to be able to lead with that and then move that from a public safety facility assessment that has the resiliency that our community needs during disasters to then build out the rest of the property in areas that we also feel are important.
And this process will actually build upon the work that was done on the Kenilworth planning process that we worked with the community on and that Parks and Rec led, because it's a gateway into our fairgrounds. So you'll also get to enjoy the mural, which Melissa could talk more about, but the mural at the Teen Center, at Kenilworth Teen Center, is phenomenal.
Yeah, we're just wrapping up the mural right now. It will be done in time for the fair, so I invite everybody to come down and check it out, and we'll have a formal celebration partnering with the library when they reopen. But this mural is a special gift to us from the Parks Department. It's been a multi-purpose mural to reinvigorate space, define the entrance to the fairgrounds, and lighten a pretty blighted building. It had advanced decay, we'll call it, from years of being vandalized. And now you wouldn't know it. You're not going to notice that at all. You're just going to see this beautiful mural that's been informed by public outreach. We had meetings at the Public Art Committee, and we also had a meeting at the library, the temporary library location, and we had a lot of community partners turn out who were just happened to be there and shared what they wanted to see. And so this mural is really the story of an animal, because Petaluma loves its dogs, a dog who is through the seasons of his life, and it's her life, I guess. She has puppies on it, but through the seasons of her life in Petaluma, and you see her being caretaked by a young man on the front protecting her from the rain, and then she's out with the cows in the pastures and having puppies, and there's flowers, and in the end, probably what I think is just the most beautiful image is a young woman with her basket full of goods from the farmer's market and the puppies alongside of her, and flowers are just pouring out of her across the scene. And I feel like it's really an inspiration to what could happen at this site. We don't have to settle for decay. We can look towards a brighter future where we are representing what we value most about our community, our agricultural roots, our healthy living, and our ability to be a team and connect with each other to celebrate life. And this year, I really invite people to look at the fair as a homegrown event. It's something where you may not get the flashy band from the 80s, but you will get somebody who is from your neighborhood. You will get somebody who needs their voice lifted. You will get somebody who's going to inspire you to dance like you've never danced before. So give us a chance. Come on down and celebrate with us, because we all deserve it.
Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. We are so excited to see you at this year's fair, Petaluma. You can still buy tickets in advance at cityofpetaluma.org/fair and find information on the programs, musical lineup, and more. Thank you to Peggy Flynn, Drew Halter, Kat Reisinger, and Melissa Abercrombie for sharing your work with us. And stay tuned for more on the Fairgrounds Master Plan process later in the year. Thank you to Rob Tomaszewski and Brandon Serrano of Petaluma Community Access Radio for recording and editing this episode. And most of all, thank you for listening. We're grateful for your time and for your love of Petaluma. Have a question you'd like answered? Email us at onepetaluma@cityofpetaluma.org. We may feature your question in a future episode. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on social media or sign up for our bi-weekly emails. Just visit cityofpetaluma.org/subscribe. Thanks again, Petaluma, and have a great day.